I'm not trying to be dramatic here because I know there's only been 3 UFC events so far in 2026, but Mario Bautista just had the performance of the year. Because in just 9 minutes and 46 seconds of total cage time, we would see Mario Bautista more than double the output of Vinicius Oliveira, 49 strikes landed to just 18, successfully land 5 out of 7 takedown attempts, and rack up 5 minutes and 47 seconds of control time, all before he would find the second round submission victory to put himself back into the win column and hand Oliveira the first loss of his UFC career so far. And the ground sequence that Mario pulled off on his way to locking in that rear naked choke was one of the most beautiful transitions in the grappling and jiu-jitsu realm that I have seen in recent memory in the UFC. He truly just controlled everywhere that this fight went. On the feet, he was the more precise and technical striker, landing the more damaging blows, and on the ground, it wasn't even close. He looked levels above Oliveira when it came to the grappling. And this was a pivotal moment in the state of Mario Bautista's career because he just had tasted defeat at UFC 321 last October, the first loss that he had had since March of 2021. He was on an 8-fight win streak prior to that Umar Nurmagomedov loss, and he was put up here against a very dangerous prospect in Vinicius Oliveira, who was on a tear in the UFC so far, and he came and not only looked like a minus 150 favorite like he closed in many of the sports books, but he looked damn near like a minus 300 or more favorite. This was the best performance that I have seen Mario Bautista put on in his career to date, hands down, bar none. And not only did he look like the number 9 ranked bantamweight in the world, but dare I say he looked like a top 5 bantamweight in the world. He was just that on point. If he can come out and put performances on like this to finish out 2026, whether he has 1 or 2 more fights, he will be inserted into the title talks heading into 2027. I don't doubt it one bit. And in the aftermath of the bout, he made a call out that makes all the sense in the world as well. So he really hit the nail on the head in all aspects of UFC Vegas 113. And that call out was Cory Sandhagen, the former title challenger, who was coming off of his loss to Merab Dvalishvili. That also happened last October. That was at UFC 320, the first pay-per-view of the 2 in October. And not only is it a call-out that makes sense given the current state of both of their careers and within the top 10 of the 135-pound weight class, but it is a fight that the two share history with, as Mario Bautista's UFC debut on January 19th, 2019, the first ever UFC fight card on ESPN, headlined by Henry Cejudo and TJ Dillashaw. Earlier on in that night, Bautista would debut against the Sandman Cory Sandhagen, and he would lose that debut bout, and it would actually come via first-round armbar. So it would be a rematch more than 7 years in the making by the time that it would take place, and I wouldn't even be surprised, given that these are 2 American top 10 bantamweights, that they could potentially clash in June on that White House card. And given the current state of the bantamweight title picture, Petr Yan just dethroned Merab Dvalishvili at UFC 323. They're now 1 apiece. I think that the UFC should book that trilogy to be ran back as soon as possible. Then you look down past those 2 and you see Umar Nurmagomedov and Sean O'Malley. Both of them just got victories on the very same night, UFC 324 in January, but neither of them were, in my opinion, title-earning performances. Hence why I think that the trilogy should happen between Merab and Yan first. Then you match up O'Malley and Umar as a true number 1 contender fight, and following suit behind them is Cory Sandhagen versus Mario Bautista. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bang. That's how you go about matchmaking these 3 big bantamweight clashes next, in my opinion. But do you agree with me? Let me know down below. And in the co-main event, Kyoji Horiguchi improved to 2-0 in his second UFC stint, and this time it was a very clean, very technical, very precise, and dare I say, stylish performance as he would outpoint Amir Albazi, the 6th-ranked flyweight in the world, in all facets of the game en route to a very clean unanimous decision win, where he would outstrike him 73-16 in terms of significant strikes, 99-20 in terms of total strikes, and defend all 7 of Amir Albazi's takedown attempts. He landed more shots, he threw more volume, and he did much more damage. This was a fantastic 15-minute performance from Kyoji, where I think he now finds himself 1 win away at most from a flyweight championship fight, and if it wasn't for how cloudy and packed it is at the top right now, you could say that he already should be fighting for the title next. But with the way Joshua Van won the belt against Pantoja, we know that Pantoja has to heal up, and then he's probably going to get get an immediate crack back at his title. And we also have two number one contenders, Manel Kape and Tatsuro Taira. Therefore, I feel like you got to have Horiguchi fight at least one more time. But if he picks up a third straight win in the UFC, then he should absolutely get a second crack at flyweight gold. As we can't forget, he got his first crack way back in 2015, where he would lose to the all-time great Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. And although Kyoji isn't necessarily in his prime, he is still just 35, so he's right on the end of those prime years, and he has shown through his first two UFC bouts back that he has plenty of gas left in the tank and plenty of tread on the tires. And all in all, even if you peel back to his Rizin and Bellator fights, he's on an 8-fight unbeaten streak and a 5-fight win streak, meaning that he has not lost since April of 2022, and that bout was at Bellator 279 against Patchy Mix, who at that point was dominating everyone. Now, how do we matchmake Kyoji Horiguchi? I think it's relatively simple. Assuming that Joshua Van will fight someone in his first title defense not named Alexandre Pantoja just because he has to recover from that arm injury, I think we'll see him back in the second half of the year. He will be fighting either Manel Kape or Tatsuro Taira. So whichever of those two don't fight for the title, that is who Kyoji Horiguchi should fight next in a solidified number one contender clash. And if for whatever reason the UFC decides to not let Pantoja back into a title fight in his first fight back from injury, then you could even have that matchup with Horiguchi, but I'd prefer Alexandre to get his crack back at the title, due to the way that he lost it. And could you imagine a potential Japanese clash between Tatsuro Taira and Kyoji Horiguchi, potentially even in Asia, specifically maybe even in Japan? That would absolutely be groundbreaking for the UFC and its Asian market as they continue to push on the global stage. So I'm going to be very fascinated to see, one, how the UFC will book Joshua Van next. I'm assuming he's going to want to get in there quickly. I've even seen him sharing tweets back and forth with Tatsuro Taira about potentially fighting on that March 7th UFC 326 card, but we are now less than a month away from that. And then two, depending on who Joshua Van will fight, I think we are in for a fantastic clash, whether that's Pantoja, Kape, or Taira versus Kyoji Horiguchi. The flyweight division continues to be on fire right now. So let me know, one, how you would match up the flyweight title picture with Joshua Van, and two, who that leaves for Kyoji to face next. This next fight is one to forget, but it was at least semi-important for the current state of the heavyweight division because the 6th-ranked Jailton Almeida just lost to an unranked Rizvan Kuniev, who was 0-1 in the UFC. His debut was against Curtis Blades, a top 5 fighter. He lost and then was given Jailton Almeida, a top 6 fighter, and then he won. But pretty much nothing happened in the bout. It was pretty terrible, and it was a unanimous decision win. And now come Tuesday morning, Rizvan Kuniev will be a top 15 heavyweight, and he'll probably be a top 10 heavyweight pushing toward the top 5 after just 2 UFC bouts. The UFC clearly sees promise in Rizvan given his first 2 matchups in his UFC career so far. I just haven't necessarily seen it in those 2 fights just yet, but I'm not giving up on him. I just think that the heavyweight division as a whole is absolutely in shambles, and it is an absolute disaster right now. So what would I do with Rizvan Kuniev next? Might as well just match him up with Sergey Pavlovich. That seems to make plenty of sense. In my opinion, the 37-year-old Dustin Jacoby earned a shot at a top 15 light heavyweight after his 3rd consecutive knockout victory at UFC Vegas 113. This time it would come in round 2 against Julius Walker. The former elite-level kickboxer has now won 15 of his 22 professional mixed martial arts bouts by way of knockout, and as I said, this is his 3rd consecutive knockout win in a row. So with that on your resume, paired with the state of the light heavyweight division and the lack of stackedness, if you will, right now, he should absolutely be facing someone in the top 15 next. And the fight that I would do is pairing him up with another high-level kickboxer, the 11th-ranked Alexander Rakic, who is in dire need for a bounce-back win. Nikolai Veretinnikov picked up his 2nd UFC victory with a vicious knockout against the longtime veteran Nico Price via first-round knockout, which was his 10th knockout victory of his career out of 14 wins. Although he is 36 years of age and he hasn't had the best run of things in the UFC, so I'm not quite sure exactly how high his potential is. I think we've already seen it, but he is always going to at least be involved in some fun scraps. Wang Cong and Eduarda Moura, the number 12 and number 13 ranked flyweights respectively, had a very bloody battle on the prelims of this UFC Vegas 113 card, with the Joker Wang Cong coming out as the victor, meaning that she is now 4-1 in the UFC, and come Tuesday morning will be inching closer to the top 10 of this women's flyweight division, and at 33 years years old. She is still in her prime, and we can't ignore the history that she has with the champion Valentina Shevchenko. I think you could pair up with two women in the top 10 of this women's flyweight division. One, Tracy Cortez, coming off of her loss to Erin Blanchfield, needing a step back in competition, or one spot behind her, the 9th-ranked Karine Silva, who would also be coming off of a loss to Macy Barber. Either of them makes sense, and it's an opportunity for Wang Cong to break into the women's top 10 of the flyweight division. And lastly, the former KSW champion Jacob Wicklax is now 2-0 in the UFC as he pulled off a 4-minute and 59-second of round number 3 submission over Muin Gafurov. And at just 29 years of age, he is already 18-3 with 2 draws and has not lost a fight since July of 2020, meaning that he is on a 9-fight unbeaten streak. And I say unbeaten because he has a draw sprinkled in there, but he is on a 4-fight win streak since then. And as I said, 2-0 in the UFC, and his first win was over Patchy Mix, the former Bellator champion. He's more than likely 1 win away from getting an opportunity to challenge a top 15 bantamweight. So that is it for the UFC Vegas 113 recap, and now it's time for me to turn it over to you. I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions, and your biggest takeaways from this fight night card down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this recap, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, as every single week I recap the most meaningful results from every card in the aftermath. Heading into each weekend, I break down the biggest and best fights and storylines, and I give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can also join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as like the Facebook page Verbal Sparring MMA, and you can follow on your favorite audio listening platform where every Monday and Friday podcast episodes release there. Have a great week, and I will see you all in the next video.